went on the field with, dominate my opponent, dominate my opposition, whatever. But when your high school teammate is your opponent, oh man, that's like you're talking about that when your people back home are talking about that at the local bar and whatnot.
Right?
So I gotta really put it on this guy. I remember Ryan Grant, the running back for the he was for the Packers back in the day, but we're from the same hometown. So it was like when we played them one time, no 100 yards for you, not even 50.
Right.
You know what I mean? So Christian Fulton, I think that's great with the familiarity. They also were teammates, you know what I mean? So they went against each other so many different times, one-on-ones in practice and stuff. So, yeah, I think that will play, for both of them, really.
I love it. I love these type of storylines. That's what's so great about the playoffs, too, because you can really zero in on some cool stories because as big as the NFL is, as many teams as there are always those connections. It's almost like a big, small world. And sometimes you cross paths along the way. And this is a really neat one. Like you mentioned, these are Louisiana boys.
Awesome.
Through and through, guys. I mean, Archbishop Rummel High School, they went there, then LSU, like Keith was mentioning, and know each other very well. When you go up against each other time and time again, it's only natural now when you're opposing, teams going up against each other. It's going to be kind of natural in a way for these guys, but they're both so competitive. And I can speak to Christian specifically because I've talked to him a lot this year. What a great young man, first and foremost. He came in here. I know he opened up a shop with his brother right here in Nashville.
Nice.
He's a business guy. He's a smart guy. But I think the biggest thing I've learned from Christian this year is he's really grown up. The game slowed down a bit for him, and he's taken a huge step forward. And these are the types of games that you're really going to see, what he's able to do, what he's made of, because he's still so young.
Yeah, and what you said was important is that, the maturity and the game slowing down.
Yeah.
I remember being a first, second year guy, and I had a vet in my room, Eddie Robinson, played linebacker. He's like, "Where are you going? Where are you going why are you going out of here so fast? Like on the snap of the ball, like I'm running to get some." He's like, "Slow down. See the play develop so you know where to go. Right now you're just running to a spot." So once you learn all the intricacies, all the small things, and I think, Will, you said earlier, maybe on or off air, I think that, or maybe in the green room now, Kevin Byard is able to kind of maybe coach more and give these guys coaching tips now that he's not, putting holes out all over the place in the secondary. He's back to playing all pro. And it's allowing guys in the secondary to see the game differently and, take it in from a different lens, a more mature lens at this point of his career.
These two guys back in April, before Jamar Chase got drafted, spoke to the fourth quarter club together, the booster club of Archbishop Rummel.
That's crazy.
They spoke together, talking about being back home. It's incredible, too, looking at Jamar Chase and just the intangibles and the numbers that guy put up going into the NFL draft. Said that the second time in his life that he ran a 40-yard dash was the combine. He ran a 4.38.
That was the second time?
Second time he's ever run it. And Keith, you know very well, too, that there's a lot of technique that goes into running that thing. It's not just, people just think you running 40 yards. You just, all right, there's a pole down there, 40 yards, let's go run it. Like your drive phase, your everything, your, the way your head, your shoulders. There's a lot of technique that goes into running that thing. That is wild for the second time ever to run a 4.38.
Yeah, that's speed. That's just pure speed. And like you say, for those who aren't familiar with the process, like once you leave college, you go with your agent. Your agent puts you somewhere that you're going to train with a trainer. And like you said, Will, like a lot goes into learning how to run properly, because when you run the 40-yard dash, it's really, like Will said, technique, coming out of the blocks, non-wasted steps, because obviously you're trying to run the fastest time possible. And the last time I ran a 40-yard dash was at the combine, too. You know what I mean? So there definitely is a lot of training in it. But it's funny also, the rivalry. I'm thinking back to the rivalry. My rival was Donovan McNabb. Because we were boys, we hung out like the same crew and everything in college, and I'll never forget the first time I played against the Eagles. It was my rookie year. It was like minus whatever. I think we won like 6-0 anyway. I come on the field and McNabb starts laughing. He's like, what are you doing out here? Starts laughing at me. And my teammates are like, damn, he just going to laugh at you like that? You know what I mean? So anyway, fast forward to 2022 to this day, Donovan McNabb never beat any of my Tennessee Titans or New York Giant teams.
Wow.
So,
You were up on that. You got his number.
oh, man. Oh, no. So you already know I'm giving it to him. So that's why Christian Fulton and Jamar Chase is a big deal. You guys are going to be old men. You get around, he starts getting a little froggy. You got to pipe him down. What's your record against me?
Exactly.
Now go get me a drink.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, it's incredible what Christian Fulton has been able to do stepping up this year. He's only allowed 24 completions all year, 41% completion percentage. And I remember going back to week 2, we talked about the Seattle game a little bit. The way he was able to shut down DK Metcalf, Metcalf had 2 big penalties in that game. And you could see the frustration on a guy that is not often shut down at any level. I mean, that dude is as big of a freak of nature as there is in the National Football League right now. And that, to me, was kind of the moment of, all right, this kid's got something. This guy might be a little bit of a dog enough. Because you play that cornerback position. Yeah. You got to be an alpha on the field.
Yeah.
Similar to inside linebacker, I would say that you got to be pretty cocky to play that position.
Well, even more at the corner, just because you're out there by yourself a lot. Like, you have so much confidence. That's why, a lot of corners and wide receivers have that swag, because it's the one-on-one matchup. The ball is in the air. Everybody's watching to see who's going to win. So you always have that one moment, and the more plays that you're able to make, the more confidence that you become. And it seems, based upon, us speaking, Christian Fulton was a second-round draft pick. Every second-round draft pick thinks they should have been a first-round draft pick.
Absolutely.
And to get these different challenges and stepping up to him, look, he wants to be a household name as well. You know what I mean? So these are the matchups that, if you're that type of player, like you said, Will, if you have that dog mentality, look, it's dog against dog, and let's get after it.
That's what you have to appreciate about Christian Fulton's game this year. And maybe that helped early on, stepping in at a game like that against the Seattle Seahawks. Look, I'm from Washington State. I know what that feels like. It's crazy. It's loud. DK Metcalf is an absolute freak of nature. And mentally preparing yourself for a game like that and going up and having that matchup and then pretty much dominating, that builds confidence in a player. And I think that really set the tone for Christian Fulton, because you guys have to understand there's a lot of cornerbacks that the Titans lost this past year. And yeah, you have Jackrabbit Jenkins, who is a veteran, but Christian Fulton at that point was pretty much established as CB1. And he pretty much took that upon himself to keep that. I know he's a little bit banged up, but he pretty much has played consistently throughout the rest of the season, never let that overwhelm him. And again, I just think that this guy is only going to get better. I think his confidence is even going to grow, because he's still a little quiet. And I know CB cornerbacks, you got to have that swag.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to grow a little too once he continues to build that confidence.
Well, in positions like that, and I think offensive line is similar to this, where you can be a corner and you can win on 95% of your snaps. But if the 5% that you lose on is big, then people are only going to talk about the 5% that you lost. It's like the left tackle that is dominating a dominant edge rusher the entire game. But if you give up 2 sacks, the story is not that you blocked him 45 times, it's that you didn't block him twice. That's what, to me, makes the cornerback position so difficult, especially for a young guy. It seems to be such a confidence-based position, where if you've got the hot hand, if you're feeling good over the course of a season, you're going to have so much more success on a big stage like a playoff game like this. And Christian Fulton has been as good as any Titans defensive player at stepping up based on where they were last year to this year, I think, all season.
Yeah, and what's important to be able to make plays and put yourself in less danger, I would say, is the film study, knowing how they are going to attack you. If Jamar Chase is on your side and he's inside the numbers, something's up. They're running in and out. They're running maybe double crossers. Knowing those little things before the snap, pre-snap recognition of maybe how they're lining up or something you've seen in your film, all those things are going to help you be prepared for the 3rd and long, or knowing that when they cross the 50, they're probably going to take their deep shot. Pay attention. That's where most of their shots come from. It was a thing when I played 20 years ago. It's a thing now. You know what I'm saying? So I think as soon as the football IQ starts to go up and things start to slow down, then different things can be introduced to a player's game that can, keep taking them to that next level.
Quick question for you. How important is it to just if you are beat on a play, I mean, how quick, especially in the playoffs, do you have to get that out of your system? I mean, you got to forget about that last play, or can it linger? I mean, how much does that come into play?
Yeah, it can linger. It can definitely linger, because you go out there, everybody's confidence is at 100, and then if you give up one first down, all right, cool, it's going to happen. You give up 2 and 3, and then you're the guy that they're coming at, and you can't put out that fire. I mean, I've never been in that situation, but I can only imagine, because I've definitely had teammates and seen other people in that situation, and it's on you as a player to get yourself out, because ain't nobody gonna, but if they put you in man and you get beat, they put you in zone and you get beat, and they put you in a double, you get beat. As a player, you got to know, I'm just out here getting my ass beat.
That's right. I think there's another interesting matchup in this game, because Tyler Boyd is probably the most overlooked player in the Cincinnati Bengals offense, because obviously you've got Jamar Chase, you've got T. Higgins, who have both been terrific. CJ Uzoma, a guy who's been doing it for a while now in Cincinnati, a very solid tight end. But you look at Tyler Boyd's numbers. If you had asked me before I even opened this page how many yards Tyler Boyd had the past couple of years, I probably would have said 500 to 600. 2018, 1,000 yards. 2019, 1,000 yards. 2020, 841 yards. Tyler Boyd this year has 828 yards, 12.5 yards per catch, which is a career high for him in a single season. And let's not forget that the Titans, in a weird game against the Texans, are coming off a game where Danny Amendola had 113 yards out of the slot, basically doubled his yardage for the entire season. I know Week 18 is a weird week. It's kind of odd to just obviously pick that one when a lot of weird things can happen in Week 18 at times, but I think the matchup we're maybe overlooking is in the slot and what Tyler Boyd can do as the third option in this Bengals offense.
So that was a great pickup, because that's exactly what the Texans did. And I said that was a blessing in disguise for the Titans, because it gives Mike Vrabel's coaching staff something to work on. Something was exposed in the second half of a game that everyone here thought the Titans had wrapped up, especially from a defensive standpoint. So that's why I'm saying, and what we've been saying the last 2.5 hours, that the front four is going to play a tremendous role, because in that second half, look, the quarterback, I forget his name. Well, who was the quarterback for the Texans?
Davis
Mills.
Davis Mills was able to sit back, set his feet, and deliver the ball. And, the Titans had a couple blown coverages. But, when you're up big, the last game of the season, you're may fall asleep. But some things were, kind of exposed. Obviously they're going to work on them. But, yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
Kevin Byard had mentioned that last week when we talked to them before they, got some rest and recovery, and he specifically said, there's things from that game we are going to zero in on, and he didn't go into that particularly with Danny Amendola, but I could probably guess that was a big part of what they were not happy with.
Yeah.
But you had mentioned just starts up front, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, we go back to that, and that's why I just think this defensive front has got to come out and just really set that tone, because it could set the tone for the defense the entire day. Because clearly the Bengals have weapons, and weapons that might not be the ones that we are just talking about all the time, like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins.
Joe Mixon's a good little running back.
I was just going to say Joe Mixon. You can't forget about that guy.
Right.
I mean, he can quietly do some things as well.
I picked the Raiders to win in Cincinnati because of their defensive front against that offensive line. And I was really impressed by the way that line played. They only gave up 2 sacks, 5 quarterback hits, and 5 tackles for loss to a defensive front with Yannick Ngakoue and Max Crosby. I thought Max Crosby was going to have a crazy game against them. And they did a really good job keeping him quiet. And looking back at the matchup on November 1st of last year, for the Titans against the Bengals, Joe Burrow had 249 yards in that game, was not sacked once, and led Cincinnati to an 11-point win over the Titans. I mean, this game is going to be won in the trenches, and it goes back to the way John Robinson retooled this defense. He bet on the fact that the same DBs were going to be better with a much better front seven than doing the opposite and keeping some of the guys up front and kind of retooling the secondary. And so far, that bet has been right on the money.
Yeah, absolutely. They were, one of the worst defensive teams last year. They didn't help themselves. They didn't put pressure on the quarterback. They couldn't get off the field on third down.
Nope.
And those are all the things that were noticed. And like I always say, Kevin Byard, he set the tone. One, realizing he wanted to bring his game level up, and two, realizing that as a defensive unit, they could have played better to help their team out in situations down the during that season. Whereas this year, they're answering that bell. And, with the pass rush, we think of Bud Dupree coming for Pittsburgh. You're thinking 10 sacks every year. But no, what he's giving them is some veteran leadership who's been there and a motor. He's constantly coming after the quarterback when he's in the game. He does not take plays off, and that's something that you see, and that allows other people inside to work, Jeffrey Simmons, Autry, and other people outside to work. So it's a whole collective thing from those guys, and they all need to have their A game on Saturday for sure.
Well, while John Robinson last year whiffed, in my opinion, on Jadeveon Clowney and Vic Beasley, that was a nightmare.
Yeah.
Okay? He got it right this year.
He
got it right on. I mean, adding Danico Autry in his presence alone, I know he doesn't have spectacular crazy numbers. I mean, 9 sacks. I think he's a sack away from his career high. That's pretty dang good.
Interior.
Yeah.
Bud Dupree, where mind you, he was still not fully healthy at the beginning of the season. And then you complement it. You got Jeff Simmons, you got Harold Landry. Look, those guys complement each other so well. When they're all there together, that is, in my opinion, an unstoppable force. And we saw it when they were all healthy and together for that stretch where they were getting a lot of national love.
That was like Buffalo,
Absolutely.
Kansas City.
It was that stretch.
That stretch right there.
Yeah,
And
it just goes to show, right?
Yep.
Bengals were 10 of 15 on third down in that game on November 1st of 2020.
10 of
Titans
15.
Titans will certainly want to be changing that coming up on Saturday in Nissan Stadium. All right, as we finish up the show, coming up next, we'll get you a quick preview of the Rams and the Cardinals on Monday Night Football tonight. Take a couple of your questions on 104.5 The Zone TV, where you can watch